Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports for today's Six Nations team of the tournament. A selection of the top performing players across the five rounds and a very interesting side. And controversially, no English players in my side, so it's going to be interesting to see how people react. So let me know right now if you think there should be any English players down in the comments below. That's the question of the day, I suppose. Please do smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. We'll be doing 5 things that we learned from the championship, which is going to be a lot of why England weren't good enough. And yeah, before we get into the team itself, I think what's important is that when it comes to selecting a team of the tournament, it's always going to be very contentious. It's always going to be very very subjective, I suppose. And as a neutral, so I don't actually have a favorite side in the competition, you know. Hopefully it kind of sort of removes a little bit of the bias, but you know, I think there were some positions which would be so difficult to sort of decide on a player, and in some positions it was so easy, which is often the case. And you know, it's one of those things where you can have some positions which are really poor, and you'll sit there saying, I struggle to find maybe a player to sort of go in there, and there are other positions where you're sitting there going, I could have put all 4 of the same of players from different teams in that same position into the side. So it's quite a difficult one to pick. I think it is quite reflective of the teams. I mean, I think there are mostly Wales players, France players, Ireland, Scotland players, well, they're only those 4. But I think it's fairly sort of spaced out in terms of the performances. But yeah, without any further ado, this is what I have gone with. And we'll start at the very top. Wyn Jones, to me, was superb. I don't think there's a chance that he will not be running out in that number 1 British and Irish Lions jersey in South Africa in July. I thought he was so consistent. He was, you know, probably one of the best performing players in that Welsh side. A bit of the undersung hero. You know, you never see props being nominated for Six Nations Player of the tournament, stuff like that. You know, it's just not one of those positions that kind of commands a respect. It's a bit like being a goalkeeper in the Ballon d'Or for football, you know. But I thought he was fantastic. He was so consistent week in, week out. It was such a solid scrum from Wales, and he was a big part of that. At hooker, I've gone with Julien Marchand from France. I thought he was very, very good. I thought there were a couple of select individual performances. I thought Luke Cowan-Dickie had some good games. So did Jamie George. I thought David Cherry, for example, had an opportunity with Scotland and had a really good game the other day. There were some very good individual performances, but I thought just over the entire tournament, I just thought Julien Marchand was the most consistent player. And then tight head is probably one of the areas where I almost put in Kyle Sinclair and thought about sort of going that way. I just thought that Tadhg Furlong was just, again, so solid. He was really, really good. And he demonstrated his class in that England game right at the end, where it came down to, you know, Ireland versus England, who's going to take it? And I thought he stood up and he scrummed England into submission. And that kind of sort of swayed it for me, the way that England scrum got completely outscrummed by Ireland, which is why, for me, Tadhg Furlong jumps ahead of Kyle Sinclair in the number 3 jumper. It will be quite an interesting fight there for the British and Irish Lions series. I also think the hooker's going to be quite interesting. Lots of people going Jamie George, which could very well be the option. You know, you got Ken Owens playing quite well. So I think hooker's in quite an interesting position. I think Lou said I think it's got to be Wyn Jones. Tight head for me is probably still up in the air. The 2 locks are gone for the championship for me. If you're selecting on form, would be the 2 locks for the British and Irish Lions. And that is Tadhg Beirne and Alun Wyn Jones. I mean, Alun Wyn Jones, does this guy age? I mean, last year was last year, the year before, I think he became the most capped player, I'm pretty sure it was last year, of all time. And now, this season, he became the most capped player for one international side, because obviously he's got international caps for both the British and Irish Lions and for Wales. So he's now the most capped player internationally regardless. And he just doesn't look like he's anywhere near his retirement. You get the same thing week in, week in out. It's a reliable line-out jumper. It's an incredible leader. It's somebody who leads by example. He hits every blooming tackle. He hits every ruck at 100%. He is tireless from beginning to end. Such a humble guy. And for me, probably the front runner for the captain of the British and Irish Lions series. I thought he was brilliant. And I thought Tadhg Beirne, you know, such a versatile player. Phenomenal at the line-outs. Really good at the breakdown. And he's really going to be pushing, for me, Mauro Itoje. I think we could very well see Mauro Itoje on the bench for British and Irish Lions, unless he, you know, because the problem is, you could say he's going to go back now and play club rugby. He's going to be playing in the championship in the 2nd division of England. That's what he's going to be playing for Saracens at the moment, you know. So it becomes difficult for me after having quite an average tournament. I thought it was pretty an average tournament. Had moments where he was very good. It was sort of all or nothing really for Itoje. He had some very good games and then had some very poor games. I mean, there was the one game, you know, where you can see like 12 penalties by himself, and that cannot happen. Whereas I thought Tadhg Beirne was just brilliant across the entire tournament. The loose trio was probably the hardest to pick because there were some massive performances, especially that number 7. I've got Josh Nvidia. I thought I was very impressed with him on the bench for the first game. Came on quite early. It was brilliant. I thought he was probably one of the best players in the Welsh opening game. And then, despite being injured, is still within the sort of top tacklers of the tournament. A very, very good player. And between him, Tipuric, and Tlapa Falatau, what a loose trio that became. And I think number 7 is going to be the biggest sort of headache for Warren Gatland, because I went with Hamish Watson because I just thought that he's been nominated for the player of the championship. It's quite a contentious one because the Six Nations Champion stats say he missed 1 tackle out of 55 the entire tournament, which is unbelievable, including 5 dominant tackles, lots of clean breaks and relentless player, and a couple of try assists as well. Optastats, though, however, said that he actually hasn't missed a tackle, so it'll be quite interesting to see. But regardless, even if it's 1 out of 55, to make 55 tackles across the entire tournament and to not miss just 1 is unbelievable. And I think him, Tipuric, and Tom Curry are going to be really, really competing for that number 7 jersey. I thought that they were all 3 terrific. And I'm sure I wouldn't want to be Warren Gatland, but I suppose it's a position where it doesn't matter who you pick, you're picking a really good player. And then gone with Falatau at number 8. Could have gone Gregory Aldred. I thought he was very good for France. But Falatau is nominated for the Six Nations Player of the Championship. The top tackler of the tournament. I think he made about 82 tackles across the entire tournament. Didn't miss very many. A very big physical carrier. And I think he's actually jumped to the front of the queue for British and Irish Lions. You've got CJ Stander, who's also around. And obviously you've got Vunipola. But again, I thought Vunipola was one of those players who just looked so off the pace because he hasn't played enough rugby. So it becomes quite difficult to sort of justify. When you've got somebody like Falatau putting such a big performance here, can you go back and say, well, Vunipola deserves to be there? Obviously, there is CJ Stander, who's obviously is in with a shot as well. But I would think Anton Dupont, the easy selection of the lot, for me, probably the Six Nations Player of the Championship. He was absolutely sublime. 5 try assists, a couple of tries himself. He just makes the game of rugby look so, so easy. Incredible to think he's just 24 years old because he's playing like as if he's been playing at this level for 10 years. An incredible player, such a talent. And, if France are going to contend at 2023 World Cup, he's going to be a big part of it. And somebody who really grabbed the opportunity was Mathieu Jalibert, who was not going to be the first choice number 10. It was going to be Romain Intermac, who was nominated for Six Nations Player of the Season last year, despite being, 21 years old. But a jaw injury meant Mathieu Jalibert actually had a chance, and I thought he was the most consistent number 10 across the tournament. Johnny Sexton probably a close second. I thought he had some very, very good games. Struggled a little bit with injury, so it was a very sort of a toss-up. It was really a flick of the coin between those two. I went with Jalibert because I was just so impressed with how he took an opportunity and he didn't look like he was a second choice player. That was the main thing. Second choice fly half, getting an opportunity and putting in a phenomenal performance week in, week out. For the wings, Anthony Watson is probably unlucky to miss out, but it was difficult to look past Duran van der Merwe and Louis Rees-Zammit. Rees-Zammit was sublime. The find of the tournament has to be on that British and Irish Lions tour. Such a young player, so much talent. And I think it was the Ireland game or the Scotland game, where they're under a lot of pressure, and within the space of like 10 minutes, he had scored a try, and also on the made a good tackle on defense, and then had put in a brilliant kick, which sort of found them 60, 70 meters in the space of like 10 minutes. And you sat there saying, how is this kid so good at this age? I was blown away with him. And then Duran van der Merwe broke the record for the most clean breaks. Scored the most tries. Scored the try right at the end. Scored the last try of the tournament. I think it's going to be a very interesting competition for those wings. I think he's also somebody who's probably going to have to get a call up. Anthony Watson. Keith Earls was very good. Anthony Watson was probably the third best after that. But I think Keith Earls was very solid. You can also look at the likes of George North on the wing if you want to have somebody else at outside centre. Because my centres are Gail Fiku and Robbie Henshaw. Henshaw played majority at 12, but a couple of the games at 13. And I tell you, he's just in some great, great form. And that England game was a masterclass by him. Made like 3 or 4 really telling tackles. He was reading the game well. He was getting over the advantage line when he had the ball. He's got an opportunity and he's made a big, big, big statement. And this is what the Six Nations for an British and Irish Lions tour is always so interesting, because you get certain players who get that opportunity and they just decide, right, first of all, this jersey is going to be mine, and I'm not going to give up this entire tournament until I'm firmly on that British and Irish Lions list. And I think he's a player that's really, really given Warren Gatland a little bit of a headache. And Gail Fiku, I thought, was fantastic. Played on the wing in the last game and was the man of the match in that game. So consistent, a really exciting player. As good in defense as he is on attack, reads the game very well, gives his best all the time. Very good and a massive asset for France. And then at fullback, you can't really look past Stuart Hogg, can you? I thought Bryce Student had some very good performances. I think he had a man of the match performance in about the third round. Thought he struggled in the last game, and that probably sort of put him behind Stuart Hogg, who was very consistent. Had a game at number 10 and looked as comfortable as number 15. But led that Scottish side really well. And yeah, I mean, with Lee Halfpenny being injured, he's got to be the front runner for the British and Irish Lions. I mean, it will be quite interesting to see sort of how they line up in terms of you could see some positional change. You could see an Owen Farrell at 10, or what's going to happen, your center's going to be. But I was very, very impressed with Stuart Hogg, and I think that he is it's just such a nice player, a good player to watch. Exciting. Him and Finn Russell just add so much excitement to that Scottish backline. Now you add Duan van der Merwe into it. It's a really, really promising backline. So that's the team I've got. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do smash like on the video. As I said, this is just my opinion. I want to know what yours are. Who else would you pick? As I said, a couple of players. I think Anthony Watson, Kyle Sinclair, probably unlucky to miss out. As is, Greg Aldred. Charles Ulevan was also fantastic. Tuparik was very good. So a couple of players you are quite unlucky to miss out, but you can only have 15 in the side. So those are the 15 I've gone with. I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Welsh players, 4 French players. They came second. It's about right. We've got 3 Irish players, 3 Scottish players. Yeah, I think it's pretty much right, to be honest. I think it's quite reflective of the table, which hopefully means there's a little bit of substance there. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. As always, it is a great pleasure, and I'll chat to you very, very soon.